Devils and Fiends, welcome once again to another edition, albeit live, of the Ministry of Horror. I'm your host Tez, and we're back. We're doing a live show for the first time in a very long time, it feels like. I can't recall when we did the last show. It's definitely been quite a while where we've just been focused on doing the weekly recorded shows. So we're on Twitch at the moment, twitch.tv/Tesius. It's only kind of dawned on me now that I'd previously talked about the idea of doing the live streams, but moving it to YouTube. Now, YouTube is where the video podcasts go out every week, and the audio podcasts go out Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I'm not really sure what's going on with YouTube at the moment. We had 1 week of really, really cool views, like really, really good numbers. And then the last 3 shows have bottomed out in terms of YouTube views. Podcast listens are still really cool, but YouTube views have kind of just tanked. I did look. I wondered if maybe my account's been shadow banned or something. Doesn't look like that. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure what's going on over on YouTube. But I think with that in mind, I thought, well, let's not do a return to a live stream over there at the moment when when the general show views have fallen off a cliff. Don't know what's going on there. Anyway, we're back live. Thank you very much for people tuning in. We've got some cool numbers going on at the moment. Shout out to Eddie in the chat. Hey Eddie, how's it going? Long time no speak. Same for Gruff and for Fran. Hope you guys are cool. Hope you guys have had a great time listening to the shows, having a great month of horror. And we've also got a first time listen, Luna Rose, who saw a post on X or Twitter. Thank you very much for joining the show, Luna. So I've kind of touched on it previously in the last few episodes, but it has been the 31 days of Halloween challenge from oh god, I can never remember the name of it, but it's not my challenge. I didn't create it, but I've shared the link in the Discord. And we finished it. Now, working backwards, obviously for Halloween, I watched Halloween 1978, but showed my fiance Halloween for the very first time. In terms of the other films, let me just bring up the list for the last, I guess it'd be the last 4 or 5 days. So Halloween night was, of course, Halloween. Black and white, I went for Nosferatu, although I will have to say, Nosferatu on Prime, not great. Not great. They've tried to update the image quality, which is just leave it as it is. They've also changed the soundtrack to this god-awful warbling. Frankenstein, I watched, I think, The Curse of Frankenstein, the Hammer horror film. That was pretty cool. B-Movie Madness. Oh, God, what did I watch for B-Movie Madness? Oh, no, I've forgotten. Family Friendly, I watched Hocus Pocus. B-Movie Madness was oh god, Night of the Demons. Night of the Demons is pretty wild. There's, I think, 3 of those films. I don't know if I've seen all 3, but definitely the first 2 are good fun. And I think that then brings us back up to Alfred Hitchcock, which I went with Rear Window, which I'm going to be honest, it's an achievement in filmmaking, I will say that, but in terms of my entertainment, it wasn't really for me. Wasn't my thing. So yeah, we're now in a position where I'm not having to watch it's not like a requirement, but not watching a horror film every day. That being said, I have a show to do tonight, so I've had to watch a horror film to discuss on the show. Now, it's going to be a fairly lean show. That being, I've only got 1 film to review. The decision to do a live show was quite late. It happened, this morning. So with that in mind, I don't have a featured presentation to discuss. But as also mentioned in the Discord, where a lot of the discussions go down, if you want to join the Discord, I don't know how, but it's the Wrestling Arena is the Discord, and Ministry of Horror is the sort of channel in the MOS community. MOS and the Wrestling Arena are the same thing, just to kind of not to cause too much confusion to any newbies listening or watching. But that's where a lot of the discussions go down. But I am trying to have more of a conscious effort to post to X and also to Facebook, because I really never really touch the Facebook account. But I'm going to try and be better at posting there. So outside of that, so yeah, it's going to be fairly lean. We've got the one film to review, and that film, which we're going to talk about later on, is Azrael, the new Samara Weaving starring post-rapture themed horror. But we're not having just a short stream. I'm not jumping onto a stream to then yab on about films for 40 minutes and then leave. No. We're finally going to have a go at doing what was watch parties. Excuse me, but it's now watch-alongs. We're now going to just do a watch-along. So, for people who don't know, one of the things that kind of got me started in doing any sort of streaming was really back during the COVID era. And I started doing a little bit of gaming streaming, but the gamings that I was playing, especially on PC, was like Football Manager. And there's a community out there for it, but the people that do the big streams are normally very knowledgeable. I'm not very knowledgeable. And I ended up kind of stumbling on this feature in Twitch where you can do watch parties, which is essentially you watch a film or a TV show that is on Amazon Prime, you have your Prime account linked up to Twitch, and people that join your stream, if they have Prime, can watch along, join in the chat. And it was great because whilst we couldn't like go out and about because of the Panny D, we could then still just have discussions and chats and watch horror films and chat, which, you know, is one of my favourite things to do, is watch horror films and have a chat. So that kind of got me into the world of doing any sort of streaming and so on and so forth. Things happen with Ministry of Slam, leading to Ministry of Horror, and there we go. Twitch disabled that feature a little while ago. I guess it wasn't really being used that widespread. There was probably things of costs were a certain degree, and it just wasn't really bang for their buck, and that sucked. But my fiance has said for a few times that I need to look into doing alternatives because she knows how much I enjoy doing the watch parties. Probably also a reason to get me out of the way so she can watch some Big Bang Theory. But no, I jest. She's doing a business on her own and doing great stuff with that. So I am only jesting. But she'd sort of encourage me, you know, get back into looking to do, you know, some watch parties because she had a great time with them. And online, there seems to be various options which all look like quite a faff. Kind of just figured, look, if people watched via watch parties before, they had a Prime account or access to a Prime account. So why not just do watch-alongs where essentially I would basically say, look, we're going to watch this film shortly, get it teed up on your platform, wherever you've got, you know, whether you're watching on your phone, computer, TV. We'll hit play. Now, syncing is going to be difficult. One, because streams innately are delayed, whether that's a few seconds or 20 seconds, I don't know exactly. But we're not, and also, I don't know how ad breaks work from device to device, from account to account. So it could be that I initially have an ad break, because Prime now has ads, as do all streaming services, it seems. I could have a 30-second ad, and you could have a 2-minute ad, or I could have an ad insert. I think the ad inserts are all the same, but you know what I mean. It's going to be incredibly difficult to ensure that we're all watching at the same time. We're going to have reactions in the chat and my reactions that they're just not going to line up. Doesn't matter. The point is we're going to be watching a film, having some snacks. I've got a ridiculous amount of snacks down here left over from Halloween, or left over from the month of October. I'll be honest. I didn't have snacks just for one day. I've been going loco on the snacks recently to a bad extent. So anyway, that's what we're going to do a bit later on. I've put a few pictures of just like the top 3 pages of films on Prime. A couple of suggestions have been Campfire Tales. I've not seen that. I've heard it's decent. And then the other one was Fright Night, the original, which I do love. So, you know, there's a couple of options there that we can go for. Let's have a quick look at the chat before we jump on in with the rest of the show, and I'll do a little bit more of what I've kind of been up to. So Eddie says it's been a bit strange, ain't it? A live from 2 or 3 months ago. So that's been a while since I've done a live show then. I might have done a game stream since doing a live horror show, but I couldn't really, I couldn't remember exactly. Good evening, Gruff, Eddie says. Gruff, hey Eddie, hey Fran. Eddie, yeah, all of them streams have been some amazing videos. Oh, thank you very much. Fran, massively failed myself. I think I got through 10 of 31. Well, I think 10 is still really good, and I think, like, I remember initially when I'd sort of posted the challenge in the Discord, you know, a lot of people were like, oh, you know, it's just not going to be possible because of life, you know, it's just not always easy to watch a film every day. And I will preface that quite often it was like background viewing while doing chores or bits and bobs, so you know, it wasn't like for 31 days straight I sat fully engaged in a film. That, yeah, it's not possible unless it is possible for you. So I think 10 out of 31 is good. B movie, personally wouldn't class that as a horror unless you're allergic. Very good. Gruff, have you seen Don't Move? No, I did want to watch that. I'm going to try this weekend to watch Don't Move. I do want to watch it. Eddie the Beast asking about posting on Discord in the chat. Yep, I don't know how to do that, and looks like Fran's done it. Thank you very much. Gruff, I could never get my Twitch to link up with Amazon on my TV anyway, so I'd always just load up Prime separately and get timestamps from you. Never had a problem with it. That's awesome. So that's what we're going to do tonight. Gruff, also, I don't thanks to my 15-month-old. She got hold of the Amazon remote and paid for a month of ad-free Prime for me recently. Damn. Thanks to your child. Then you don't have to deal with their awful ads. I mean, honestly, I've been going to I go to the gym 4 to 6 mornings a week, and for my cardio, I tend to put something on my phone. You know, something like a horror show or Disney Plus, something like YouTube. I watch this YouTuber at the moment called Caleb Hammer, who does financial orders. He just gets really annoyed with people because they don't understand money, and I recently put on The Office on Prime, and I love The Office. I haven't watched it for a little while, but it's one of those comfort shows for me. And I tell you what, putting on a 20-minute show, and there's at least, I think there's like 2, maybe, I think possibly 2 ad breaks per episode. God, it sucks the life out of you, I have to say. So yeah, kind of envious that you don't have ads, but at the same point, I'm thinking, to me, it's like, I'd feel annoyed at myself for paying for ad-free, because I think, that's just wasting more money on a service. But then at the same point, ads suck. So yeah, it's kind of a toss-up, really. And Fran, yes, I think the COD zombie stream was after the last live show. Yeah, the COD zombie stream. We haven't done another one of those since. In terms of like gaming, so I've been playing Silent Hill 2. I think that is just absolutely brilliant, and it's kind of got me through chats with my friend Tom. It's definitely got me wanting to jump back into the world of Alan Wake 2, because they're 2 quite similar games in terms of the exploration mechanic, the movement, the melee kind of combat element, and it's just, obviously they're very different stories, very different approaches. There's a lot more in depth, you know, with the storyboard and the police notice board stuff, the writing element in Alan Wake. But just in terms of, it's not full on action like Resident Evil. I love Resident Evil, but it's taken that step back to the more psychological horror and the more sort of genuine jumpy scares and just making you nervous. Silent Hill 2 seems great so far. I have heard there's meant to be a bug a bit later on, but I haven't got that yet, thankfully. But Alan Wake 2, I've played a little bit more of that today for the first time in a while. Yeah, so I think we've done enough of the chitty chat. Let's just have a quick look. Gruff, speaking of YouTube, have you seen the RKG video with trying to scare Gavin? It's really funny. I haven't watched that yet. I started it, but I haven't watched it because it's quite long. Obviously, it's not as long as the RKG retries have been, which I'm struggling to get back into just because each episode's like 2 hours almost. I think I've always just preferred the 30 minutes to an hour, like the hour being a bumper length. But that's on me. That's on me. I'm sure if I get back into the regularity of watching RKG's retry, then I'll enjoy that. But yeah, I've been listening to Friday the 13th, their podcast, Surviving Friday the 13th, currently on Jason Lives. It's great. It's great. Anyway, Ghouls and Fiends, without further ado, it's time to jump into the horror news. This is the news. Oh, 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 oh.
You hang up on me again, I'll cut you like a fish, understand?
God, I forgot how thirsty work this is. Talking on a live stream, I'm doing a lot more rabbiting on than I do on the recorded shows, but it's good. It's good fun. Looking forward to watching a film later. Probably getting a couple of beers. So, first up, this is all coming from bloodydisgusting.com, as per all my news. They're a great website, news source, reviews, all that good stuff. Now, normally I'd sort of talk through the new horror releases this week, but their horror releases came out at the very start of the week. We're now at the end of the week, so it kind of just felt a bit redundant. I mean, you know what? Yeah, let's bring it up actually, because there may be films that have come out onto streaming or whatever that you're not familiar with. So hey, why not? Eddie missed these live streams. Thanks very much, Eddie. So Halloween week, 10 horror movies releasing in the final week of October from John Squires. So I'm just jumping into this list now, so I haven't watched any of these trailers, but that's nothing new for this is nothing new for the live shows especially. So Lionsgate heads back to Amityville with Amityville Where the Echo Lives, a brand new indie horror movie that will debut on demand and digital beginning on Tuesday, October 29th. Carlos Elea directed Amityville Where the Echo Lives, which doesn't look to actually be set at the infamous Amityville horror house. Of course not, why would it be? Instead, it looks to be another in-name only installment in the saga, which has become one of the strangest franchises of all time. In the film, when Heather West, a paranormal investigator, receives a call from a terrified woman who claims her house is inhabited by a ghost, she discovers the building has a horrifying history. After a presence from beyond our world reaches out to her, Heather begins to feel a pull to the other side of the spirit plane. Can this hunter of spectres deliver an innocent soul to a place of peace and discover an eternal truth in time to save her own life? Sarah McDonald, Brianna Rossi, Adela Paros, and Nicholas J. Barelli star. So Amityville it's a funny old franchise. I have seen a handful of the Amityville films. I think one of them, which may have been the second one, had quite a creepy moment in it that I saw as a kid, and it stuck with me, where it looked like a ghost or something was standing on this guy's stomach, so you saw this imprint of a foot pressing down. Thought that was really, really creepy. But outside of it, it's not a franchise that I've really been that fussed with. I've seen the remake with Ryan Reynolds. It's fine. It wasn't really very memorable. The original is quite infamous. I can't remember, I don't know if it's because those classic ghost films never really had much of an impact on me. I'm not sure, but they've never really stuck with me. And in terms of the franchise being in name only, that is very apparent. So when myself and a few of my then colleagues took over Vipco. One of the films that we had on our books was a film called Amityville Hex. Some talented people involved in it, so I don't want to take anything away from the people involved because, you know, they've become Facebook friends and I like seeing their careers flourish, you know. Whilst I'm not doing so much kind of film work these days myself, it's always cool to kind of just see how people are getting on and what projects they've got coming up. But the film itself is absolutely nothing to do with Amityville. And another distributor who distributed a couple of the one feature and one of our shorts for a short collection, SRS Cinema. Really cool guy, really nice guy that runs it. But I know they've released a number of Amityville films, like Amityville Karen, Amityville in Space, things like that, where it's like the image of the house and the name are there purely to sell it. And you could see that's nothing new. There's plenty of sequels in horror films. I mean, Jesus, a ton of the Hellraiser sequels weren't written as Hellraiser films. They were written as your bog standard thrillers, horrors, and to keep the rights, I think Dimension would bung in some Hellraiser elements and Pinhead, and then there you go, it's a Hellraiser film. It's nothing new, but it's a practice that doesn't interest me as a fan. I need a good story, generally above all else. That's kind of my usual prerequisite. Odd thing to say for films, I know, but the approach of just, hey, it's got that name, so it's part of that series, that's just never really interested me. So can't say I'm going to be rushing out to watch that. Next up, described as Back to the Future meets Scream, the time-travelling slasher movie Time Cut is coming to Netflix October 30th, just in time for Halloween. Hannah McPherson directed the film, written by McPherson and Michael Kennedy, from a story by Michael Kennedy. Michael Kennedy of Freaky, It's a Wonderful Knife fame. And it's been marked down as a time-travelling slasher, so he really has a theme when it comes to the sort of tales that he writes. I mean, that's fine, but surely you'd get a bit bored of everything that is around body popping and time travel. Put my bottle on my headphone lead. Anyway, in Time Cut, which calls to mind last year's Totally Killer, a teenage girl travels back to the early 2000s to stop a vicious killer from murdering her sister. Madison Bailey and Antonia Gentry star. Cast also includes Michael Shanks, Griffin Gluck, Rachel Crawford, Jordan Petal, Megan Best, Samuel Braun, Sydney Sebastian, and Katium O'Connor. Christopher Landon produced the upcoming slasher. I mean, Freaky and Happy Death Day were fine. You know, I enjoyed them enough. I wasn't that fussed with Happy Death Day 2. Yeah, I mean, he is slashing out a niche for himself. I'll give him credit in terms of having this. It's a slasher film, but with, you know, Freaky Friday or Back to the Future, whatever. It's a little bit gimmicky for me personally, but that I don't want that to take away from anyone who enjoys that kind of shtick. It's all good. Fran in the chat says, surely Heretic deserves a mention. It hits cinemas today. Well, hopefully that gets mentioned on this list because I definitely want to go see that. There was talks of going to watch it this weekend, but I think people are busy on different days, so it's not always going to be possible. So, Cinemark's Fear of Missing Out, FOMO, series will see creepy classics and thrilling new releases on the big screen through October 31st, with both Bride of Chucky and John Carpenter's original Halloween heading back into Cinemark theatres for the final week of October. Andy Muschietti's It from 2017 also brings Pennywise back to Cinemark for Halloween. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty cool. Bride of Chucky, It, Halloween, I enjoy all those films. You know, be cool to watch them in the cinema, for sure. We don't get that in the UK, so move on. Everyone's talking about The Substance. Coralie Farget's body horror masterpiece starring Demi Moore as a fading celebrity who injects herself with a cell-replicating green substance that makes her give birth to a younger version of herself. If you've been dying to experience the substance but haven't been able to get out to your local theatre, the good news is that Farget's new movie is coming home for Halloween. In fact, The Substance heads home on Halloween. The film will be available to watch at home on Thursday, October 31st, exclusively on Mubi's very own streaming platform. Yes, there's a Mubi streaming service, and yes, you'll have to sign up to be able to watch the movie on there next week. The good news, you can grab a 7-day free trial right now. So, this is also in the UK. I keep hearing about The Substance. I do want to watch it. I'd be tempted to sign up for the free trial for the Mubi channel on Prime. I would just need to make sure that I cancel it before it charges me, because I can't imagine that there is that much else on Mubi for me, for my, it's not going to be Shudder, is it? So next up, 15 years after the film's initial release, Henry Selick's 2009 stop-motion film Coraline is once again heading back to theatres for the Halloween season. In the wake of Coraline scaring up 53 million at the global box office this past summer, the film returns to the big screen nationwide for another limited time engagement in newly remastered 3D and 2D formats. I've never seen Coraline, and it's just it's a bit of an enigma that a film from 2009 can keep getting re-released and keep doing really, really well. I did not realize it was that incredibly popular. More fool me, huh? More fool me. Next up. So this is one that we talked about a little while ago on a previous show. A slasher throwback that pays tribute to the horror cinema of the 80s and 90s. Director's Cut opens in select theatres on October 31st before arriving on VOD at a later date. Director's Cut from filmmaker Don Capria stars Louis Lombardi as a mysterious murderous sociopath preying on a punk band's desperate desire for fame. A Long Island punk band meets a mysterious director through social media who generously offers to shoot their first music video for free. Desperate for fame, they drive deep into the Pennsylvania woods in hopes of making a killer music video. But after a long night of drinking with the gregarious director, the band wakes up to find a very different version of him on set. So I really like the sound of this. It's got the whole punk rock element, kind of like Green Room, with a real focus on just that golden era for slasher gore fests of the 80s and 90s. I'm going to be keeping an eye out for this. I'll have a quick look, as I do sometimes, if a film does catch my interest, for Director's Cut on Prime Video. Director's Cut. Oh, I didn't get a notification, but Gruff is now showing as a subscriber. Thank you very much, Gruff. Muchos appreciated. Director's Cut, here we go. Does not look like that specifically is on Prime yet. I'm getting a lot of Director's Cuts of The Writer's Ghost, Keeping Secrets, Nymphomaniac Volume 2, Commando Director's Cut. I mean, I like Commando. I was not aware there was a Director's Cut. Oh, there we go. Moving on. Right, that's not horror. The next killer Santa horror movie is heading our way this week with the indie He Sees You When You're Sleeping, slashing straight into VOD outlets at home on November 1st. In the holiday horror movie from director Charlie Steeds, Chester returns to the home of his estranged and hideously overprivileged family at Christmas, only to find an unknown killer disguised in a Santa outfit is stalking and killing family members one by one in order to claim the huge family fortune. Which of them is the killer? Caroline Williams of Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 fame, Lauren Marie Taylor, Friday the 13th Part 2, Nicholas Vince, who's the Chatterer in Hellraiser, Cedric Geagle, and Christopher Kaler star. I mean, who knows? Who knows what kind of quality that's going to be like? I'd need to watch the trailer. Let me just click on the trailer and mute it. We'll have a little kind of scan through. Okay, I mean, it looks like it might be fun. It looks pretty low budget fare, I'll be honest, but it might be alright. Comes from the Horror Collective. There you go. So that's it for the new horror films. Let's move along. Heart Eyes. Watch Bloody Red Band teaser for Valentine's Day horror movie. Exclusive for Bloody Disgusting. This is from John Squires. The filmmakers behind Freaky, Happy Death Day, and Werewolves Within join forces for the upcoming horror movie Heart Eyes, slicing into theatres on February 7th. Today may be Halloween, well, that's yesterday, but Bloody Disgusting is kicking off the Valentine's Day celebration early with the official Red Band teaser for Screen Gems and Spyglass's Heart Eyes. Josh Rubens is directing the Valentine's Day themed horror movie with Mason Gooding and Olivia Holt starring. This Valentine's Day, romance is dead. For the past several years, the Heart Eyes killer has wreaked havoc on Valentine's Day by stalking and murdering romantic couples. This Valentine's Day, no couple is safe. Gigi Zumbardo and Michaela Watkins will also star in the upcoming Heart Eyes alongside Devon Sawyer and Jordana Brewster. The new horror movie from Screen Gems and Spyglass features a screenplay written by Philip Murphy and Michael Kennedy and Christopher Landon. How could I forget? Christopher Landon and Divide and Conquer's Greg Gilreath and Adam Hendricks are producing. Well, it doesn't sound like there's body swap or jumping to the future, jumping to the past in there, so seems like my comments earlier on about the shtick may well have been a bit presumptuous. I will take that back. We'll move on. Irish vampire movie Feed pits social media influencers, oh god, up against vampires. It's from John Squires. Based on Bram Stoker's Dracula as well as an Irish legend, the upcoming vampire movie Feed has begun production ahead of the American film market next week, Deadline reports. From director Marco Van Bell, who did Mercy, the upcoming vampire movie Feed is being shot in Ireland. Fitting, given that the film is inspired by the Irish myth of the Deag Dú. According to Wikipedia, Deag Dú, an Irish name meaning red bloodsucker, is a female demon that seduces men and then drains them of their blood. The film follows a group of 20-something social media influencers who spend a weekend at a remote contemporary house in an Irish forest and must fight for their lives when they awaken the world's original vampire from her slumber. Grace Collender stars alongside Clinton Liberty, Daisy Jelly, Niamh Hogan, Rhys Mannion and Oscar Smith. Mercy. I can't remember if Mercy is the Guy Pearce film that I watched a little while ago, and it wasn't very good. It may not have been Mercy, but I can't think of what film that was, so the whole point may be redundant. Yeah, I mean, I'm always down for a good vampire film, especially when the vampires are more monster, more visceral. Don't know if that's going to be the case here, but it doesn't sound like it's going to be lovey-dovey blood-sucking. So, interesting on that part. Fran in the chat. Has anyone else started watching Ben Wheatley's Generation Z, or Z if you're in America? No, I've seen it advertised. Do we have any thoughts on it so far? Worth a watch, do we know? Graph Generation Z? Is that the TV show? I didn't realise that was Ben Wheatley. Fran, yes, it's on Channel 4. They've stuck that and a lot of his films on 4OD. Wow. Ben Wheatley is a good director. Not all of his stuff's great, but his pretty good voice in British horror for sure. And Eddie the Beast is Michael Kennedy again. So next up, Cinematic Scent Archive launches Trick or Treat and Texas Chainsaw Massacre fragrances in VHS packaging. Comes from John Squires. What does a Chainsaw Massacre smell like? And does a Killer Pumpkin Boy Sam actually smell like a pumpkin? The company Zarina has managed to conjure up the answer to both these admittedly bizarre questions adding both the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Trick or Treat into their cinematic scent archive with the release of 2 brand new fragrances. You know, you might think, what the fuck is he doing talking about fragrances? We're coming up to Christmas, baby. When someone says, what do you want, you know, in your stocking, honey bun, you can say, oh, I want to smell like a pumpkin serial killer. Or a Texas Chainsaw Massacre scent. So we don't really need to read much more about the fragrances for them, but I mean, if you're going to get aftershave, why not have it branded by a horror film and in a VHS cassette box? I mean, I'd be down just for the cassette box, you know. Kate Siegel, next up in the news, and David Dastmalchian starring in zombie movie Epilogue, Mike Flanagan producing. Don Squire's right up again. Described as an action horror movie, the upcoming Epilogue will be produced by horror master Mike Flanagan, and Deadline reports that Kate Siegel and David Dastmalchian will star. Both Siegel and Dastmalchian have become fan favourite actors in the genre space in recent years. Siegel starring in Mike Flanagan's Hush, as well as the TV series The Haunting of Hill House, The Haunting of Bly Manor, Midnight Mass, and The Fall of the House of Usher, which I still need to just force myself to watch. Siegel also just made her directorial debut with a segment in Shudder's VHS Beyond, and admittedly is the best segment in that film. David Dastmalchian starred in this year's indie hit Late Night with the Devil, which I'm very much looking forward to receiving. I pre-ordered it months ago, but it's Late Night with the Devil is a really nice box set, and I had messaged Second Sight Films and said, this came out a few days ago. When can I expect to receive it? But because I ordered it at the same time as pre-ordering the Blair Witch Project box set, they don't release their orders until everything is available. So I got to wait a couple of weeks. That sucks. But anyway, David Dastmalchian starred in the indie hit Late Night with the Devil, and recent credits include The Boogeyman, which was shit in my opinion, Last Voyage of the Demeter, which I do want to watch, and The Life of Chuck, which is coming out soon. Michael Fimognari is directing the upcoming horror movie Epilogue, fresh off directing 4 episodes of Flanagan's Fall of the House of Usher. Set 1 year after the zombie apocalypse has supposedly come to an end, the film will follow a desperate couple who set out to find a cure for their infected daughter. Luke Barnett and Tanner Thomason wrote the screenplay. The Coven will launch sales next week at the American Film Market, Deadline also notes. Todd Garner produces for Broken Road Productions alongside Courtney Petrakis, Brittany McDade, and Mike Flanagan for Red Room Productions. I mean, Kate Siegel's very good. So I'll keep an eye. And David Dastmalchian's brilliant. He's really found his niche in horror. Yeah, I'm going to keep an eye out. Mike Flanagan's hit the news again recently. So he's doing The Life of Chuck, which is based on a short story from, I think it's the Bazaar of Bad Dreams collection. It's from one of Stephen King's more modern short story collections. He's also attached to do the Dark Tower series for Prime, which has a lot of intrigue because the film wasn't really much to do with the actual books. But apparently he's also been announced to be doing Carrie, a new adaptation of Carrie. Now, for me, I'm not that interested in seeing Carrie adapted again, personally. Like, I think the book's decent, but it's by far not my favourite Stephen King book. His book, I should just say, in general. I like Mike Flanagan, but man, this to me it becomes worrying if a director falls into the trap of just being attached to new adaptations and sequels or remakes. I don't have a problem with established directors doing sequels, remakes, or doing adaptations, of course, but my point being, Mike Flanagan has done quite a few Stephen King adaptations and is attached to quite a few Stephen King adaptations. And he's recently then also now been attached to do the new Exorcist sequel. And I imagine that will be great, but this is a guy who's, to me, his best work has been his original stuff. Midnight Mass, Haunting of Hill House. Well, Haunting of Hill House isn't original. It's a fresh adaptation, I've just realised, but scratch that. Midnight Mass and Hush and Oculus. Very original workings. But but I feel it falls into a bit of a pigeonhole trap of, well, I'm the new modern Stephen King guy that does Stephen King adaptations. Like, I get it, I'm a huge Stephen King fan. There's such a library to pick from for things to put onto the big screen or put onto the small screen, but I kind of think you limit yourself a bit for exposure if you're predominantly just doing that. So I thought I'd just mention that because that has been in the news recently with Mike Flanagan. And then finally in the news, Pinocchio Unstrung. First image from Pooniverse horror movie starring Robert Englund. So John Squire's write-up. Surprise, surprise. The filmmakers behind Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, and its sequel are expanding their Pooniverse with multiple upcoming films, including Bambi the Reckoning and Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare. But today we're here to talk about Pinocchio Unstrung. I should mention the Peter Pan film does look like it might actually be half decent. Excuse me. Half decent. Bambi the Reckoning, I've not seen anything for, and I've got no interest. Variety has shared a first look image from the next movie in the twisted public domain horror universe this morning, while also revealing that Robert Englund has joined the cast. The horror legend is reportedly playing the role of iconic character Cricket. Additionally, Richard Brake will be starring as puppet master Geppetto. Rhys Frake Waterfield is directing the upcoming Pinocchio horror movie for Jagged Edge Productions with makeup effects legend Todd Masters, tasked with creating the film's sinister Pinocchio doll. The fully practical puppet can be glimpsed in the shot above, which was again first shared by Variety this morning. Frake Waterfield tells Bloody Disgusting, the film will embrace practical effects at every opportunity, ranging from the doll itself to the title card of the film. Having a budget significantly higher than my last film, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2, I'm aiming to make this the definitive Pinocchio horror film and my best movie to date. Cameron Bell, Jessica Balmer, Jack Art Gray, and Peter DeSouza Forianoni also star in horror movie Pinocchio Unstrung, which is expected to come to life sometime next year. The various films in his twisted childhood universe are all building towards Pooniverse, Monsters Assemble, which will also feature Pinocchio among the deadly gang. I mean, this has a pretty decent cast. It's the same director as Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. I've not seen the second one. I haven't brought myself to watch Blood and Honey 2. The first I thought was absolute visual diarrhea. It was I didn't like it. I'll refrain from being too harsh because I don't want people to be upset when they did like it, because ultimately, in opinions, we're all entitled to them. I thought it was terrible, personally. And that, Ghouls and Fiends, is it for this week's horror news. That was the news. Ho, 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 ho. Whoops! Slip of the finger. Speaking of the news jingle, I know that's obviously one of the beloved things on the show. I had my gym playlist on the other day, and quite often when I go to the gym, I listen to podcasts and sometimes audiobooks. But if I'm looking for a really good lift, I'll just put on some heavy metal, some death metal. But I recently just put on my general gym playlist that I haven't listened to for a little while. And I had this song called Howling by Lupin, which was the old Ministry of Slam, as it was then known, outro music. And God, I miss that. So if people ever miss the old music from the end of the Ministry of Slam, it's on Spotify, called Howling. Give it a listen. I still enjoy it. God, this hoodie's getting warm. I'm really sure. I don't prepare for these live streams. I don't know if you've got that impression just yet. We're going to get now to the main point of the show, which is our one solitary review. Review music. And that review is for the new release on Shudder called Azrael. Azrael is a 2024 American action horror film directed by E.L. Katz and written by Simon Barrett. The film stars Samara Weaving, Vic Carmen Sone, and Nathan Stewart Jarrett. So, as with usual, when it comes to reviews on the show, I will read a bit about the blurbs, a bit of the opening of the film. I'll try not to go too far into the blurbs, so we don't go into major spoilers. We'll talk about the highs, the lows, and I will give you my score out of 10. So, this film stars, as mentioned, Samara Weaving. So, many years after the Rapture, the remaining human survivors on Earth are plagued by the Burned Ones, demonic humanoid creatures who are drawn to and prey upon human flesh and blood. Azrael and her lover, Keenan, are ousted from a forest-dwelling cult who believe that speech is a sin, and who have surgically removed their vocal cords to cease speaking. Josephine, one of the cult's leaders, captures and separates the couple with the help of her henchmen. The cultists attempt to sacrifice Azrael to the Burned Ones, but Azrael manages to escape, killing one of the henchmen in the process. Okay, so as mentioned there, this cult and the people around it have surgically removed their vocal cords to cease speaking. And what that basically then means is there is little to no dialogue in this film, which is both ingenious and also a little bit confusing. Okay, so Samara Weaving is she's brilliant. You know, she is great in the Babysitter films. The first one, she's not really in the second one much. Ready or Not and Scream 6. She has a brief role in Scream 6. But she's fast becoming a scream queen in her own right. And with this, she plays just plays a character that becomes an absolute badass. So we're in a world where there really isn't much dialogue. What I will say is, after having watched the film, reading the Wikipedia does make certain elements of the film make a little bit more sense. When I say that, it's not necessarily that the film itself is confusing. I generally got the gist of the film whilst watching it, but in terms of the nuances, characters' names, for example, and in terms of what certain things mean, it has helped a little bit reading the Wikipedia. I will say that. I should mention that the Burnt Ones, these demonic humanoid creatures, so think about an outdoor woodlands equivalent of the monsters from The Descent. These things are kind of similar to that. They're quite tall, thin beings that can move quite fast, razor sharp teeth. They've kind of got that look of like an orc from the Lord of the Rings, like the skinny orcs, mixed with the creatures from The Descent. And man, they are vicious. They're drawn by blood. So when Azrael has been caught by these cultists attempting to sacrifice her, what they do is they tie her to this kind of chair in the woods, and it's in daytime. They slice down her thigh, not her thigh, her shin bone, and then they all turn away from her on this ridge, and they're doing this. It's like a chant, but the chant is all through breath. So they're all just going like that. It's quite strange, but it's building. She's panicking, and she can see this. It basically does look like a burnt orc, kind of slowly making its way to her through the woods. One of the cultists notices her trying to escape, goes to try and stop her. She manages to break her arm free while still attached to a bit of the chair, which she stabs into his neck. He staggers backwards from this, blood pouring out, and the gore is good in this film. Like the effects, the special effects are good. The visual effects are good. He staggers back into the tree line where this thing grabs him, and it's not like your typical monster attack in a lot more modern films where the thing just jumps on them, and you get the impression that it's eating them or whatever, but you don't really see it. This just had this. The approach in this was a lot more kind of sinister. Like, what can I liken it to? I mean, talking about the Descent, they kind of stalk and then viciously just start ripping and tearing. There's an element in this, but in this, the monsters are almost a bit more like kind of perverted with it. Like they bite, like they bite into like the neck, and then they'll kind of look back. They'll hold the person down, sort of looking back, before they then start like pulling the wound open and then ripping it. Like it's the approach to the monsters in this is really quite unique, because there's a real savagery that I haven't seen in movie monsters in a little while. Like movie monsters these days, or slashers or whatnot, there's this visceral, kind of almost over the top approach to gore where they're able to tear heads in half and rip off arms. And the more common thing with like slashers these days is how easily they break someone's arm or break someone's like leg. And it's like, I'm pretty sure bone isn't that easy to just go snap. I don't know, maybe it is, I don't know. But there's this almost kind of outlandish approach to the monsters or like slashers and serial killers in films. And when it comes to monsters, then it's kind of an almost similar approach, or they take the approach of, well, you can't really see what's going on because it's so rabid, it's so intense. But with this, there's a few kills in this film where you're just like, oh my god. They're savage, but just in this really kind of freaky, measured way. The film moves at a pretty swift pace, I should say. The violence is pretty good. There's not much in terms of that you need to kind of follow. I mean, as I mentioned, it makes a little bit more sense when reading the Wikipedia page. But I think that's more so in regards to, I didn't pick up on anyone's name in the film. I don't know if I missed text on screen, because there was occasionally moments with little text parts that would just appear like kind of title cards. It could well have been there, but I didn't really notice anyone's names in the film. But you generally get the gist that there's this cult and she is wanted, or they're looking to murder her, and there's a lot of retribution and back and forth, leading to a pretty cool fight standoff into the finale before just things just go. It is a wild final few minutes in terms of the implications of what has occurred at the very end of the film. And I guess it kind of leaves it nicely where there could be potential for a sequel if needs be, because it ends on such a note where you go, oh shit, what can happen next? But at the same point, if that's the end, then okay, you can just question these things without feeling shortchanged. There's a nice element of ambiguity to the finale, I should say. I don't really necessarily have any negatives. The acting on this is on point, especially when there's not dialogue and you're having to portray through actions and actions and reactions to the things going on around you. Things are great in that. The soundtrack, pretty good. Didn't necessarily stand out, but it was pretty good. On the whole, the film is definitely worth a watch. I think for this year we have had some really interesting releases so far, and this just adds to it. So if you have Shudder, or if you have not and you want to get like a free trial, this is now on there. I'm going to give it 7.5 out of 10 for Azrael. I dug it. Something cool about it. We'll have a quick look in the chat. So Fran says Dead Meat did the kill count for Blood and Honey 2 recently. James was much more positive on it than he was on the first. I still don't know if I can bring myself to watch it. I know it's on Tubi now, but I really didn't like the first. Eddie the Beast is going to need to watch the kill count. Eddie, in regards to this, so it's kind of like The Quiet Place with the silence. Kind of, but they haven't taken a vow of silence when it comes to the monsters. That the vow of silence is this religious element. It's because it's many years after the rapture, and the rapture event is when, I mean, just to kind of put it fairly bluntly, as far as I'm aware, obviously I don't know all the ins and outs, I'm not religious, but it is kind of an end of world event where Christian believers are taken to a better place. It's hard to describe, but I guess like a more modern version of the rapture, as far as I'm aware, because I didn't watch all of it, was the leftovers. An event when half the population or a chunk of the population disappear, and it's kind of like, where have they gone? Or, you know, are they the best of the best and they've been taken up to heaven or something? Something along those lines. I'm sure I'm probably butchering the whole the whole meaning behind it, but that's the understanding that I have. Eddie, I seen something the other day, and it's about horror movie survivors just scream and stay still instead of running from the killers. I mean, quite possibly. I do tend to think that if people that were being chased by serial killers just ran for a long protracted amount of time, then surely they have got enough of a head start to where the killer will just turn around out of boredom. I think quite often they run and then hide 30 seconds away from where they're running from. Like, you know, come on, just if you're gonna run to get away, do it. Just keep going until you can't run anymore. Anyway, Ghouls and Fiends, that is it for another edition of the Ministry of Horror. We are going to be sticking around to do a watch party. Finally, I hear you say, finally we're actually going to do it and not just talk about it and not do it. Thank you very much, Ghouls and Fiends, for everyone who has listened to the show, whether you're watching this live, twitch.tv/Tezius, Tezzius. I'm not going to commit to doing regular live shows or game streams. You know, I don't want to commit to these things because life gets in the way. You know, planning a wedding, work. You know, I've got my bookkeeping business that has started up and has now got a couple of clients. Huzzah, patting myself on the shoulder there. Huzzah. So in terms of, you know, regularity of streams, who knows? Not going to commit to anything there. But check out the YouTube Ministry of Horror. Be sure to subscribe. Click the bell so you get a notification when a new video comes out. Again, I don't know what's happened to views. They've gone from really good numbers to shot down. Don't know. Maybe I need to use hashtags better. Who knows? But Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts, check it out on there. Give it a follow, subscribe, whatever. On Twitter or X, it's ministry_horror. Be sure to give that a follow. I occasionally post up thoughts. One day I'll get my social media game down pat. I need to set up some sort of syncing so I can post in one place and it posts everywhere at the same time. I'm sure there are these things and I'm just an idiot, but check there. And then, you know, there's other socials that you'll find around. And of course the Discord. So Ghouls and Fiends, stick around, but otherwise, catch you later.